Greetings. If you're new, welcome to the channel. If you're not, welcome back. Today we're going to pick up on part 3 of our chord duration topic, chord durations in scalar, and we'll be focused primarily today on play quantize and also how duration impacts the perform modes. So let's go ahead and get started. If you haven't seen videos 1 and 2 or parts 1 and 2, we're going to be using some of the things we talked about there. You'll see them in a link up here somewhere, I think. So yeah, let's get started. We're going to go ahead and grab some chords. Let's go out to David Carbone and Up in the Air. I'm a skydiver, so these chords always inspire. So before we get talking about chord duration specifically, there's a topic we need to be clear on, and that is, what is play quantize? So play quantize, you'll see it listed here, is scalar's way of managing timing with the various elements that you're playing and that scalar is playing. Let's talk about what it is not, maybe. Let's start there. Play quantize is not what your DAW generally does. Most DAWs allow you to quantize individual notes, which is basically just moving notes to a particular grid or a particular resolution. Many DAWs will have an automatic quantize function, which lets you grab a bunch of notes and quantize them to a particular grid location, or they might also have record quantize, which is where you play a MIDI instrument and the DAW lines up your notes to whatever grid setting you've set. What scalar does is what they call play quantize. And that is different because what scalar does is scalar listens to, watches for MIDI notes coming in, whether you're playing them or they are coming in through a MIDI event, and it then plays notes if the notes you have delivered to scalar or scalar is listening to line up on a particular beat pattern that you have, or a beat count that you've selected. So easiest way is just to take a look at it and listen to it and make a couple changes. So first thing we want to do is let's grab an arpeggio chord, and let's do eighth notes. Let's do up and down. Okay, we're set to 4 beats, so let's just grab and drag up to the DAW. So now if we play this, first of all, don't forget to turn off your performance. We'll talk more about this later, but there's many ways to leave things turned on in scalar that you forgot about and things don't sound like you expect them to and so forth. Just get in the habit of turning that off. So now scalar is just going to play these notes as expected. Now, if we come into settings, go down to play quantize, that enables play quantize, but play quantize uses 2 specific settings in this scenario. One is, what do you want it to quantize to? Chord duration or beat. It will be on next beat. That will be the default when you turn play quantize on. I had it left on there from previous, but it will be on next beat. If you hit play now with play quantize enabled and next beat, notice our beat per minute set at 60. So now we're basically playing a note per beat. However, there are notes every other beat. That's because we're on the next beat setting. Now, if we turn this off, or if we change this to chord duration, now play quantize, because this is set to chord duration, pays attention to what this setting is. So if we want to listen, if we play this now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Even my timing is goofy. Anyway, so that's 1 every 4 beats. If we speed that up, 1 every 2 beats. Every 1 beat. Go to half beats. Stop this. Let me open this and watch the timeline for a second. to make sure we're clear on what we're looking at and hearing. So let's go ahead and put this on 4 beats right now. Bring this up a little bit so you can see a little better. Here's our arpeggio. Let's turn this off. Remember, this is what it's going to sound like when we play it just as normal. All right. So we turn our arpeggio or play quantize on, and it's going to immediately, because this is set to chord duration, and this is set to 4 beats, we're going to immediately swap to 1 every 4 beats. There's our first beat, 4, beat, 2, 3, 4, beat. Now if we go up and let's go all the way to the other end of the spectrum on this, which is every half beat. So what scalar is doing, again, it is looking at the notes that it's trying to play, and it's mapping that to the chord duration information that you have set here. Why is this important to understand? This is important to understand because as you start to play with different settings in scalar and driving different parts of scalar into itself, for example, play quantize can create huge differences in how the music sounds. It can make things interesting, it can make things terrible, it can do all kinds of fascinating things. But you got to understand what's happening in play quantize. I can't demonstrate play quantize with a keyboard very well right now, but when you're playing a MIDI, I don't have the camera set up to do that, when you're playing notes directly, that's my pad. If I have play quantize turned on, when I hit a note, it's going to only play that note if I happen to be on the beat that was set here, or if I'm holding the note down when that happens. Again, can't really show this because I can't show it on the keyboard. However, when people try to play a MIDI controller with play quantize on, there's a couple things that can make it much easier to get that timing set up. One is set it to 1/2 beat, right? Make sure your chord duration is set to chord duration and play quantize. If I do it to 4 beats, let's just say 2 beats, I have to hit or be holding a key on every second beat. Let's say we go to 2 beats. You'll probably be able to hear this when I tap this, or you can also see it show up on the keyboard. You won't be able to see that. So let's do this. Let's bind this. So now, there you go. So you can see the white. When you see the white, you might also be able to hear me tap. That's when my key is actually playing. Let's spread this out a little farther. Let's go down, let's say every 4 beats. It's going to make the window of opportunity even smaller. Play quantize turned on. So what you'll see is you'll see the key or hear the key or pad, me tap it, and it could either sound a note right when I tap it, if I happen to be on beat, or it can be 4 beats until you'll hear a note. So there you go, there's a note. All right. So what's happening is scalar has its beat timer running. And if you're going to try to play quantized, you're going to need to learn to play a note and wait for that note to respond, and then start to play in that time. It's tricky, but you can do some really cool things if you invest some time doing that. And it's easier, for me, it's easier to do it on a keyboard than a drum pad as well. So anyway, that's the basics of quantize. Let me do one more thing here before we leave quantize. I'm going to turn this guy off. Again, play quantize is turned on. We're on, let's go back to half beats, half time. Get this playing. Now, if we move this note off this beat, do that double note. That's these 2 notes now sounding, because this note and this note is sitting on that half beat. We move it back. Now we hear it. We move it off just a little bit. And that one picked up there. Now, if we make this note smaller, it'll miss it all together. No note. All right, so nothing now, right? Quiet. Now if we move it back over, you'll hear it pick up. Maybe. Come on. on snap. Let me make this a little longer. There we go. So, the implications of this are, with some of your performances that use very, very small notes, 32 sixteenths, 32 note, 30 seconds, even 64ths. If those notes are not exactly on beat, you'll never hear them, which is why when you start to play with the play quantize setting, you can really change the character of some of these performances. All right, so that sets up the next discussion on this topic, which is about how do you then use some of this play quantize in interesting ways.